ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my new video. I'm going to give you my thoughts on UK sending depleted uranium to Ukraine, and I'm going to be ranting and raving about that. I'm also going to be talking about the ICC's decision to give a arrest warrant to Putin. And I did some research on this, and I'm going to be giving you some information that no other channel has been able to give. So wait for that. And thirdly, I'm going to be talking about President Xi's trip in Moscow, meeting Putin, and what's come out of it, and things like that. So without further ado, let's carry on with the show. So I heard yesterday that UK was sending depleted uranium shells to Ukraine. And when I saw this article, I was pretty shocked, to be honest, that UK would go to these lengths. And when I looked at BBC, um, the guys in the BBC are trying to play down, depleted uranium, and they're saying, no, no, don't worry, this is Russian disinformation. There's nothing wrong with depleted uranium, and you can see here. Um, Depleted uranium is a standard component and it has nothing to do with nuclear weapons, the MOD had said. Nobody's saying it's got nothing to do with nuclear weapons, but these are depleted uranium shells, and I'm going to give you some more information about that later. But before I go there, I want to kind of laugh a bit about what the MOD has said. And you can see here further on, he mentioned that he said that it doesn't cause any adverse health effects, even though they have been using it for decades. And you can see here, the British Army has been using uranium and its armor-piercing shell for decades. So 1 decade is 10 years, right? 2 decades is 20 years. So what war have they been fighting for 20 years? Obviously, Iraq, Afghanistan. So they've been using depleted uranium shells all over Iraq and Afghanistan. Absolutely destroyed the country. And now you have all of these Iraqis who are babies as well, born with loads of defects, people dying of cancer, and people having all sorts of issues because of this. And the British Army says, "Oh, don't worry, we've been using this for decades. There's nothing to worry about." Of course, they don't really care about what they do to Iraq or the Iraqi people. This is absolutely, you know, stupid. I must say, this is absolutely stupid. I mean, I have no words to describe how dumb this is. And even though you can see here, this is the report by the United Nations, right? This is not something I'm picking up from the internet. This is an article from the United Nations, and they basically put a report in the United Nations, and it talks about depleted uranium, and they talk about all of the dangers, talk about all of the effects that it has, and all of the studies that's been done, and you can see that you can see the studies that they've been doing, and in the studies it says clearly, you know, the situations where fragments of coarse depleted uranium and munitions were found, there's potential risk of radiation effects or individuals who come into contact with it, um, with the fragments or ammunitions. The risk can be mitigated by national authorities who conducted some simple countermeasures after as the collection, storage, and disposal of such fragments. Nevertheless, in post-conflict environment, the presence of depleted uranium residues can further increase anxiety of local population. Then you have former tank commander and chemical weapons expert Colonel Hamish D. Breton Gordon said Mr. Putin's comments were classic disinformation. So if it's classic disinformation, how do you explain all of these people that's having cancer all over Iraq, all these birth defects? There's pictures of babies in Twitter showing all sorts of defects with like 6 arms and 6 legs. You just have to go to Twitter to see that image. I can't show it here. It's absolutely horrible. And the only reason the British are using this is because they're not having a war in British British island. This fighting is going on in Ukraine, so it's far away from Britain. So they don't care about the after effects. They don't care about the radiation poisoning. They don't care about these babies that are going to be bombed, deformed years later. As long as it's away from UK, that's all that matters. They don't care about the Ukrainian people. And what do you think Russia's going to do? Obviously, Russia's going to escalate things as well. They're going to say, all right, if you're going to use depleted uranium shells against us, we're going to be using depleted uranium shells against you. In fact, we're going to, um, attack you with more lethal firearms, more lethal weapons, and it's just going to escalate. And this is UK's ploy to escalate this further because they know President Xi and Putin were having talks about doing some sort of ceasefire or peace talks. So this is no coincidence that Britain basically came up with this yesterday during those talks, and they wanted to escalate things. They don't want peace. And this is their tactic basically. So I feel sorry for all these poor Ukrainian people that are going to be suffering for generations because of all of these warfare and all of these people using depleted uranium shells in Ukraine. And then you're going to see like Ukrainian babies born 10 years, 20 years later with all sorts of deformities like they have in Iraq. Absolutely disgusting what Britain is doing. And Putin has said that he will escalate this, and Britain is really asking for it. I feel ashamed to read kind of these articles that are coming out on BBC and things like that, and what the British government's doing. It's absolutely shameful, absolutely shameful. And even till this day, they are still singing hymns about Ukraine is winning and blah blah blah. We don't want peace. Ukraine is winning. It's just, and the BBC is the worst pile of garbage I've ever read. And I'm going to show you something else about BBC actually. See this? Oh, here. See this article here from the BBC. And if you notice this article, it says Iran and Saudi Arabia to renew ties after 7-year rift. And it doesn't mention anything about China. And you can notice here, Middle East regional rivals Iran and Saudi Arabia have agreed to restore diplomatic relations 7 years after severing them in a bitter row. Unexpected announcement came 4 days of talks between officials from both sides in China. In China. But it doesn't say China was involved in getting these two guys having peace talks at all. Even the picture, you can see the picture everywhere. Most news organizations around the world would have shown the picture of the Saudi Arabian ambassador and the Iranian ambassador, holding hands with Wang Yi and signing the document. And they didn't even bother putting that picture up, and they put this ridiculous picture of of some demonstration in Tehran. Can you see how the disinformation is working in the BBC in full effect? Because they do not want to show anything positive coming out of China. They do not want the people to know China is going around making peace deals, and China is the new kid on the block doing things like this. So they don't want the British people to know that, so they don't mention anything about that. And if you read the rest of the document, it's all about Saudi Arabia and Iran. At no point he mentions China. And you can see it talks about Saudi Arabia, talks about Iran, and it just completely, China's completely missed out from this whole document. And it's absolutely disgusting. People like myself will notice these things, but the average citizen, when they read these BBC articles, are not going to know anything. This is complete brainwashing by the BBC. Anyway, let's go back to the depleted uranium. So the US is also saying they need to start sending banned weapons to Ukraine. So you can see it's not just the British people doing it. The Americans are also saying they need to start sending cluster bombs and things like that to Ukraine. They obviously want to escalate things, and I can see things getting more and more escalated. And these poor Ukrainian people who are fighting in Ukraine, dying for Ukraine, for the Americans, for the British. They don't really care about these Ukrainians. They will fight till every single last Ukrainian is dead, um, just to hurt Russia and just to hurt, China. And I just can't believe most Ukrainians are falling for this. Where are the demonstrations? Where are the people standing up in Ukraine saying, we're not going to have this anymore. We're not going to be made to be pigs for sending us to the slaughter just for US and Western hegemony. It's just doesn't make any sense. So I was going to talk about the ICC now, and one of the informations, I've been doing some research and I found a lot of information about the ICC. So this is the main guy who actually put um, arrest warrant on Putin. This is the guy. His name's Karim Assad Ahmed Khan. So he's obviously Muslim, and he's a new guy in the ICC, and he only joined last year. So you can see Russia's launched a criminal case against this guy, and I'm going to tell you why. Um, it's funny that Medvedev is saying he's going to bomb the ICC Criminal Justice Court in The Hague, but there's more to it than that. There's more to it. So this guy is replacing this lady. So this lady, her name's Fatou Bensouda. So this lady basically started an investigation on Israel's crimes in Palestine, and also started an investigation of US crimes in Afghanistan. And the US did not like it at all. And the US basically placed sanctions on her. And you can see the sanctions were imposed on the former President Donald Trump over the court's decision to go into alleged war crimes of US in Afghanistan. So at that time, the US is like, no, no, we don't support the ICC. We're not a member of the ICC. We put sanctions against it. We will put every single member of the ICC under arrest. And all of these judges and the people who run the ICC got scared. And guess what they did? They got rid of her. She's been there for like 9 years, pushing these war crimes pushing war crimes in Afghanistan, pushing war crimes by Israel, and the Americans did not like it. And you had Mike Pompeo coming on record saying, they basically want her resignation, and if she doesn't resigns, then they're going to blow up the ICC. They're going to arrest every single member of the ICC, and that's what he said. And these guys in the ICC got scared, and they basically got rid of her. And you can see here, there she is here on her wiki, and she mentions how she was the main person pushing for these war crimes against US and Israel, and then she was asked to basically step down, and so she stepped down, I think last year or something. And you can see less than a month before handing over her new post to her successor, which is the guy Karim Khan. She said, something I have experienced is pressure, attacks, and politicization. What we do in this office is critically important, adding history would judge us. So what the Americans did, they basically put this guy, Karim Khan, in power. He's basically one of the US puppets. So what do you think the first thing that he did when he came into power? He basically ignored all of the work that Fatou did with regards to Israel and Afghanistan. He basically threw them all in the bin, and he decided to go after Putin based on the instructions by the United States. And the United States does have power to do this, guys. I mean, they've done it, in the recent history, all throughout history. Recent history, you had the UN human rights person from Chile, I believe. She came back from China saying there's no Uyghur genocide, and she put a pretty good report on it on that report. And the Americans did not like it, and so they basically asked for her resignation, and they pushed her out of the office. And somebody else basically wrote a report on her behalf. It wasn't something she wrote because she did not sign it, and I can name many times in history this has happened. You had the WHO report as well. When they went to China, did their report, they came back praising China. Then the Americans did not like it. Then they replaced the WHO main guy, and the new guy is basically now asking China for all sorts of stuff, and he's basically singing the same hymn tune that US wanted. And, it's the same pressure. The US gave pressure to the weapons inspectors. Basically they will. If they don't like you, they don't like um, what you're doing, they will find a way to push you out, kick you out. If they can't do that, they will knock on your door and they will threaten you. I mean, these ICC judges, they're not leaders of countries where they're untouchable. These are based in Hague. So you can imagine a couple of people dressed in black suits knocking on their door saying, listen, if you don't drop this case, if you don't sack this woman, if you don't appoint this guy that we want, then you and your family are going to be disappeared. And I can imagine them doing that. And that's what's happened. So they put the puppet in place, Mr. Karim Ahmad, and he basically threw away all of the research his previous prosecutor did, and he basically, according to the instructions by the US and Ursula probably, they said go after Putin, and that's what he did. So what does this mean for the ICC? The ICC has now become a joke. Nobody will take the ICC seriously. And you can see this article here, Fatou, a daring prosecutor who challenged the US and Israel impunity. And what did she get for her trouble? Basically, they made her quit. They kicked her out of office and replaced her with a puppet. And this is what happens. And now ICC has become a joke. Everybody on social media is basically laughing at the ICC. They're saying, why are you putting an arrest warrant on Putin? What about, you know, Blair and Bush? What about all of the, they basically killed 1 million Iraqis going into Iraq. Why aren't they tried for war crimes? What about all of the other war crimes in the past? Why is Putin the only person that's getting this war crime thing? And the ICC again has become an absolute joke because of it. Who's going to take the ICC seriously now? Come on, who's going to take it seriously? Even the US don't even take it seriously. So the ICC has now become a joke. If the US don't take it seriously, all these other countries are not going to sign up to the ICC. They're not going to take it seriously at all. China's not going to take it seriously. Russia's not going to take it seriously, and the ICC has become an absolute joke. At the time, I remember when these cases were brought up against the United States and Israel, and I thought ICC in The Hague, this seems to be quite a legitimate organization if they're going after US crimes and Israeli crimes. And I actually had some respect for them back then. But no, like every other organization around the world, once United States gets puny hands on it, it's absolutely destroyed. They make them their puppets. And it's very easy to do, guys. It's very easy to do. Like I said, you either knock on their door, threaten them, give them money, or do something. There's always ways. And these judges, they're a bunch of like men with no spine. These are just judges. They're not untouchable. They're not untouchable. And one knock on the door by somebody in a black suit threatening them, that'll be it. They will just pee their pants and say, okay, 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 I'll do anything. I'll do anything. Whatever you want. Absolute joke, guys. Absolute joke. So as you know, Russia and China were meeting for 3 days. And I was looking at the BBC. Again, BBC was covering it. They thought they were having a chat about doing a peace deal for Ukraine. So Yeah, they were basically covering that, and I'm thinking, why would they, why would they meet for 3 days and waste 3 days talking about Ukraine? Only an idiot would do that. I mean, they're not going to waste any time talking about Ukraine. This is just like what you call a feint, when you kind of feint one way but you go a different direction in football or something. When you try and go past someone, you try and feint to go one way but then you go another way. It's one of those feints. It's what you call a joker card, where the West thinks you're doing something, but you're doing completely something different. I mean, the Chinese and the Russians, they're not stupid. They know that the Americans are the ones that are running the show. And when they were meeting, you had Mr. Kirby coming up and saying, "Oh, there's not going to be any peace talks. There's not going to be any ceasefire, blah, blah, blah." And they basically fell for the Chinese and the Russian traps. And the whole world can see that, the United States, they don't want any peace, and the British are sending depleted uranium to escalate things even more. So there's not going to be any peace. So I think President Xi knows that. The Russian president knows that. So they're not going to waste like 3 days talking about it. I think what they were talking about is other important things. Number one, all of the making sure like all the gas deals, and all of the energy deals are basically done. They were talking about infrastructure projects. They're going to build another bridge between Russia and China. The trade has already gone up around 200 billion as well. They're going to aim for 300 billion. And so there's also many mega projects. There's massive roads that are being built from Russia to China, massive railroads. There's a high-speed rail link that's going to be going from China all the way through Russia to Moscow as well, and many other high-tech stuff they're going to be doing. But I believe they're also talking about military aspects as well, military sharing. China knows that Russia is um, once the West completely is done with Russia, China is next. So I believe they are going to be working together. China is not going to allow Russia to collapse or Russia to lose in Ukraine, because that would be terrible for China as well. So China and Russia basically finding ways where they can work together militarily, share knowledge, share information, and also talk about maybe Taiwan and stuff. So you're talking about 3 days of discussions here. It's a lot to discuss. Here I'm doing a video for about maybe half an hour or so, but these guys, having huge negotiations for huge things that's happening for 3 days. So there's a lot happening, and I think a lot of the media are pretty quiet about what's come out of those meetings. And the reason it's very quiet, the reason they haven't really released t- too much information is because it's top secret. And if things are top secret, then you know that they are discussing very serious matters between themselves. So that's all I wanted to kind of say, really. And you can see here, US won't even let Ukraine consider peace talks. And President Xi was supposed to have a phone call with Zelensky. He probably will give him his phone call, but he's not going to talk to him for much long. He's just going to say, "Listen, puppet, you need to put your foot down and stop being such a puppet of the United States. You're killing off all the Ukrainians. You're destroying the country. So just kind of focus on peace. Don't be led astray by these Westerners who don't care about you, don't care about the Ukrainians, don't care about the country." I think that's the kind of advice President Xi would give him, and that's it. He would just put the phone down after that. So I really hope that things kind of die down in Ukraine, and people work towards peace. But I'm just an optimist. I don't think that's going to be happening. I think it's going to be escalating, and you can see the British escalating things today and yesterday, and things are just going to get worse. Russia's going to carry on fighting. In Bakhmut, they basically created a trap, and all of these soldiers. I've seen a video on Telegram, really. saw a video of these huge battalion of Ukrainian soldiers going towards Bakhmut. And what the Russians have done, they have opened a route. They made a cauldron around Bakhmut, and they basically left one road for them to escape, and also one road for reinforcements. So there's a massive amount of a huge battalion of soldiers who have come as a reinforcements, and they just fell into the Russian trap. Then suddenly a huge artillery shell falls on top of them, and the Russian soldiers go in there to clean it up, or start, and it's a shame they just fell for the trap. And you can imagine like people trying to escape the cauldron getting killed, people trying to come into the cauldron getting killed. And this is just a war of attrition, guys. Russia's just, the main purpose of Russia is to destroy Ukraine's military, destroy all the Nazi elements, and that's the main goal. They're not after land, they're not after, you know, they got enough land as it is in Russia. They don't really care about the land. What they really care about is their own safety, and the only thing that can threaten Russia's safety is the Ukrainian army, which has been built by NATO all these years. And if Russia didn't go in now to destroy the Ukrainian army, in maybe 5 years or maybe 10, maybe even less, you could have seen the Ukrainian army becoming so strong, followed by NATO, and basically they would have gone and taken back Crimea and gone into parts of Russia as well, and it would have been too late by then. So the time is now to get rid of this very, very strong Ukrainian army. It's very strong. You can see how hard they are fighting. Even the Westerners are surprised how hard these Ukrainians fighting. But you know, unfortunately, people are dying on both sides, more on the Ukrainian side, and it's just a shame. I just can't believe Ukrainians are not seeing that they are being used, absolutely used as guinea pigs by the West. It's a shame. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.